You ever wonder why some people seem like they get ahead and they have just enough time to do everything, and you, on the other hand, are just spinning your wheels and you really don't have time to really do what you need to? Well, in this video, we're going to talk about time management and what the difference of some people do and the difference of other people do that don't get ahead. My name is Noah Gordon, and the average high school dropout will make approximately $35,000 on the maximum end. I help coach those same students to be able to double and triple their annual salary so that they can live a more stress-free and fulfilled life. So why does it seem like what you're doing in the time that you have is not enough? Why does it seem like that toast is spread a little too thin while you look around and you see other people and they just have plenty of time to get it all done, the things that matter anyway? One thing that I noticed years ago, there is something in today's society that everyone values. And if you talk against this thing, it's a little bit of a taboo subject. Why is that? Well, in today's society, we tend to value entertainment a lot more than other things. Why is that? Well, you could state different reasons. In the fall of the Romans, right before the fall, they valued entertainment. Well, you can look at the United States and you can look at the fall of the Romans, and there's a direct correlation between how we value entertainment and how the Romans valued entertainment right before they fell. So what is one of those pieces of entertainment that just seems to be a time suck? It's the one thing that it just seems like 99.9% of everyone out there really enjoys and they really dig into. Well, it's football season right now. Currently, it's December, and the amount of time that's spent in front of the television watching football is mind-blowing to me. Now, rewind to my childhood. I remember sitting in front of the TV with me and my older brother and my dad. We had those old tube-style TVs with the antennas sticking out the top, and you'd try to get the football station in on Sundays, and you might have to wrap some aluminum foil around those antennas or set it right next to the window or smack on the side of the TV. It was good memories. It really was. And I remember those times, and as I grew up, those really good memories of, football Sunday, I tended to lean into that, I guess you could say. So I leaned into it in such a way that I became an avid Chiefs fan. I grew up in Kansas City, and for the longest time, as many of you guys might know, the Chiefs really stunk. They didn't really get anywhere. Now, as of late, they're Super Bowl holders multiple times over, and they're actually a decent team. But for the longest time, I did not only spend, let's say, Sunday relaxing, watching a Super Bowl game, but I spent the rest of the week being a fan. So that's listening to commentary on the Chiefs. That's thinking about, well, who are they playing Sunday? And do you think that they're going to win or they're going to lose? What's the tight end going to do? What's the quarterback going to do? And all the little details that go into that. Now, I'm not here to say that watching football once a week for a couple hours a week is going to make you poor. But I am here to say that what I noticed back then was when I was poor, when I didn't have two nickels to rub together, the interesting correlation that my bank account had with the amount of entertainment that I consumed was disproportionate, I guess you could say. By watching one football game a week or two, because then you don't want to just watch my team, but you want to watch another team, and you want to see how they're going to pair up with the next game in the coming weeks. You tend to take your focus off of the important things. Now, entertainment in itself is fine. There are plenty of things that are entertaining that you can take, and it will help you reset. You can't run 100 miles an hour at full steam and expect that you're going to have anything left at the finish line. You do have to take some time out for yourself. But does that mean you take so much time out for yourself that you are distracting yourself from what matters? Now, if you want to correlate what we, I guess you could say, what we're designed from our Creator, we are correlated, we are designed, I should say. We're designed from our Creator to mimic Him. Okay? So if you go back to how He created the world, He created the world in 6 days. And the seventh day He rested. So through those 6 days, it doesn't say He sat down and He rested. He didn't. He worked 6 days in a row. And the seventh day He rested. And He used that as a model for us. That's in the Bible for us. It's not something that God did and that's far-fetched, and we should not follow that model. That is absolutely the model to follow. Now, that being said, does that mean kicking up in the evenings to slow your mind down from the work day that had been had? That's fine. But are you getting home at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, grabbing a beer, grabbing 2 beers, sitting in the recliner, kicking on the television set, watching reruns of sports, watching reruns of anything, or watching anything for that matter, till 9, 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, every night? Once in a while is one thing. But if you're doing that every night, I could almost guarantee you, if you are in a spot to where you are behind, if you are doing that every night, you will not reach your goals. It is virtually impossible to reach your goals by having this massive amount of entertainment in your schedule and being able to achieve all the things that you're trying to accomplish. Starting a business requires so much mental energy and effort. If you take all your focus sitting there watching the Chiefs game and you think of who's going to make the touchdown on Sunday, if you're spending that effort doing that, you're sucking all that time away from what is important during that 6-day period, that block. I'm a huge proponent, and I didn't used to be, but I truly am now, that I'm a huge proponent on working 6 days. Work as hard as you can for those 6 days and take that 7th day off. But don't allow that 7th day, football in this case, you could apply this to anything. Baseball. I used to be in speed skating. That was a big thing for me. And I look back on that, and it's like that really didn't benefit me much of anything. That's a sport that's like I wasn't able to carry that on through the rest of my life. There's plenty of other sports that are that way. So if you are taking and you're putting all your focus into those sports, you won't be able to focus on the correct things. My kids, I've made the decision with them because I think that there's a misnomer. This is my opinion, but I mean, it's my opinion, so I think it's the right opinion. I think that there's a misnomer with sports amongst most parents, that they think that they are needed for a healthy child's development. Now, what are some of the things that are cited for that? Well, it's camaraderie, it's a work ethic, pushing yourself hard, working out. It's I hear this all the time. It's teamwork. They've designed sports or they're there to help kids learn teamwork amongst everything else. Okay, so here's where I'm going to push back on that. Can you learn teamwork outside of sports? Yes. Can you learn camaraderie? Can you have camaraderie outside of sports? Yes. Can you have a work ethic outside of sports? Yes. So you can accomplish all those things that everybody's trying to accomplish outside of sports. Now, how? There's various different methods. One thing I'll tell you, what I've decided to do with my kids, and this is a level of sport, but think about this. I was the 4th fastest speed skater in the nation when I was a kid. Today, what skills did I learn from being the 4th fastest speed skater that I can use today? Well, okay, I learned a work ethic. Great. I learned to skate really fast. Okay, I can't use that. I learned to be super competitive. That's one you could use today. But there's so many other ones of like, what wheels to use on what surfaces, outdoor, indoor, what rink we're skating at, what bearings to use, what boots to wear, what helmets to wear. How do you pass somebody on an inside corner? How do you pass somebody on an outside corner? How do you get the fast run off the start line? There's so many different nuances to speed skating that they're fun. They really are. But let's admit what it really is. It's fun. It's entertainment. It's not necessarily something that's going to help me down the road. Now, am I upset at my parents for putting me in that sport? Absolutely not. I had a blast. Really did. But did it help me develop as a human in the way of like business or finance or taking care of my family? Sure, I took on a couple different things from it, like being competitive. But no, it really didn't. So what have I done for my kids that I've decided to try to instill some of those development traits that they could carry on, and yet they could use it for the rest of their life? Now, I'm not getting sponsored by this. I'm not a proponent for this, other than I think this is a great sport. But I put all my kids into jiu-jitsu. Now, why? Well, jiu-jitsu allows them to defend themselves in a dark alley. Jiu-jitsu gives them a work ethic. Jiu-jitsu gives them some time to exercise. So you have all these things that accomplished the exact same thing that did speed skating, but yet when they're 20, 30, 40, 50 years old, they're actually going to be able to use that in a self-defense manner. They can carry that on. They can teach that to anyone. They don't have to have a skating rink. They don't have to have a football field. They don't have to have cheerleaders on the sidelines. They can just use it. Now, other things would be, karate or some type of martial art. I think that those type of things, those sports, those are great. Those are sports. Now, I will say, in moderation, those are great. If you're spending so much time into that, unless you're going to this into a professional manner, there's got to be a cap out. My kids don't do jiu-jitsu 6 days a week. They don't do it 5. They don't do it 4. They would benefit by doing it a couple days a week more than what they are now, but currently they're in it once a week. So they go up, they take classes, they're in jiu-jitsu once a week. That is their sport. Now, some people might say, well, it's not a team sport, so they're not learning to be a team player. Here's what I'm going to argue on that point. You've been sold to be a team player from who? I would like everybody who's watching this video to answer that question. Who told you to be a team player? 9 times out of 10, everybody's going to be answering that question of being a team player because your teacher told you to be a team player or your boss told you to be a team player. Now, what about that is going to get you ahead in life? I'm not saying being a team player is wrong. Being a team player is a good thing. You should be kind and you should be nice to each other. Absolutely. That's something that God tells us to do, and we should work together. But being a team player has been sold to us all the way back to the industrial age. It's when Henry Ford had the assembly line, and he needed more factory workers, and he needed more team players. You can look at Rockefeller. You can look at all these people that designed the educational system to create team players. So 100 years later, we have all these team players telling each other that we need to be team players. And if you're not a team player, then you're basically an outcast. Well, I'm here to tell you that you can make a far better income not being a quote-unquote team player. There are certain characteristics that you need to have by being kind to people, being gentle, but being this team player that the world has molded into this thing, this characteristic that we have to be, will only suck you in to their plan. And what is their plan, or the man, I guess you could say? Well, the man used to be a term back in the 60s, 70s, I think, when the hippies pushed back against, norm society. The educational system and the work field wants workers that obey. Because if the workers don't obey, then they can't tell the workers what to do. And they're not good workers. But here's what I'm here to tell you. Being an entrepreneur, most entrepreneurs that I've ever met, including myself, are not very good team players. Now, does that mean you're mean? No. Does that mean that you're not considerate of others? No. But when I go out, and this is kind of something that's funny for me to think about, but when I go out and I watch a football game, or when I think about when I used to be into football and watched it a lot, I could watch that team play, but when I tried to play football with other people, I wasn't really a very good team player. I tended to look at my side of things more than other people's side of things. I tended to want the ball more. I tended to want to run to the touchdown more instead of passing, or whatever the case may be. Now, some of that is developed over time. Some of it is how I grew up. And like skating, for instance, that's not a team sport. Jiu-jitsu, that ain't a team sport. But do those quote-unquote team sport or team player mentalities that they say we have to have, do we really have to have them? Now let's talk and think about some things, some working fields of where you would need team sports. I was on I guess you could say a factory floor basically, because it was in commercial printing for over 10 years. Sending paper down one side of the press, filling ink up, running a press for over 10 years. Now, does the company need me to be a team player in that instance? Absolutely. If I don't work with everybody else on the press, everybody else in the plant, I'm not going to do very good. And there's some people that are wired that way. They like to be on teams. It helps them. I'm not that way. Well, what are the levels of capping out in those scenarios? I'm a high school dropout. So I'm sitting there on a concrete floor for 10 years, doing night shift, doing day shift, doing any type of shift that you can imagine. I've almost guaranteed that I've done it. The worst that I did, absolutely hated that shift, was 7:30 to 7:30 3 days a week. 7:30 at night to 7:30 in the morning, 3 days a week. Absolutely horrible. Now, I needed to be a team player to be in that cog, to fit their cog. But what was the maximum that I could make in that cog? Well, I made $35,000 a year. Worked in it for 10 years. So, worked in it for 10 years, had people tell me I was one of the hardest workers they'd known, had my boss tell me that I was too good at what I did, making $35,000 a year, fitting into that cog of that team player. It doesn't work. Being the team player is okay, but focusing on it and making sure you are the team player is just putting yourself into their plan. It's putting yourself into that cog. Being an independent thinker is what will get you ahead, not being a team player thinker. Or I'm trying to think of the best way to word that. Basically, putting your mind into this mush of everybody else, of like the sheep essentially, just following orders. The moment I decided, I've always been that way. I've always resisted the team player mentality. But the moment I leaned into it was the moment I didn't allow my lack of a high school diploma and my education level and everything else that was behind me, didn't let that define where I was headed in the future. I took my, not experience, but I took my determination and I took my independent thinking and I pushed forward into what? I went from a warehouse job, got out of commercial printing at the time, was in a warehouse job. I went from a warehouse job to a sales position. A sales position is not a team sport. A sales position is kind of eat what you kill. And that is the point that my life changed. That's the point that things moved forward for me. And that in itself goes back to what you are doing for entertainment. Are you taking and using sports as something that you're being entertained by? Are you spending the time on the sports when you could be spending the time on perfecting your craft, on getting your family out of this horrible financial situation? And could you be moving your family forward? Today, I don't turn on football. I have no clue as to who is going to win the Super Bowl this year. I'd never want to make a bet on it. I listen to different people saying the Chiefs are doing this, they won this Sunday. I could care less. Why? Because I decided that I care more about my family than I care about the football. Now, if you're doing great, if you're financially doing fantastic, and you've crossed all your T's and dotted all your I's, then have at it. Watch all the sports you want. But if you are behind on your bills, you're deep in debt, you're making $35,000, $45,000, $55,000 a year, and it really depends upon your circumstance, how big your mortgage is, how many kids you have, if your wife works. There's a lot of different varying factors. But if you're hurting and you're watching football or any other sport for entertainment, for that matter, you'll never get there. You'll never get there until you change those fundamental things. Now, my life, from watching sports to not watching sports, which one's better? I'll take not watching sports. I thoroughly enjoy a group of guys getting together and talking about who is going to win the Super Bowl this year, and knowing I'm not involved. It really brings me enjoyment. Why? Because it shows me that I'm spending my time on the right things. I'm spending my time on moving the needle forward, on changing the course, the future of my kids' financial future, making generational wealth. The Bible says that a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. Now, does that mean if you're not leaving an inheritance to your grandkids, you're a bad person? No, I don't think that's what it means. But I think it means if you think about leaving an inheritance, if you work hard on leaving an inheritance, if you put your focus on leaving an inheritance to your children's children, that is in itself is what God requires of you. So kicking your feet up on the couch, that's even on a Sunday, and grabbing a beer or two and watching the football when you're financially upside down or you have better things to do, you're doing the wrong thing. I'll be the first to say it. Now, going outside and throwing the football around with my boys is something I am absolutely going to do. I'm going to play football with my kids, and I hope to play football with my grandkids. But it doesn't mean that I need to be entertained by someone else doing that. I hope that makes a little sense to you. Together, let's change the course of the next generation. We'll see you in the next one.